This pen is turned into my gavel, and I feel like I'm opening the Duchess's court every time I gavel it, so let's get this started. Alright, y'all. I had a wonderful evening last night, indulging in a bit of Shakespeare. I felt so safe in a moment. I went there. I went there with Shakespeare nonetheless. That moment, going there. Shakespeare, and it's the scene between King John and Hubert and Arthur. What a moment. But first, your top three things. From the AP Wire, Trump loyalists get top Pentagon jobs after Esper firing. A day after President Donald Trump fired Defense Secretary Mark Esper, three staunch loyalists to the president were named top defense jobs. Among them was a former Fox News commentator who failed to get through Senate confirmation because of offensive remarks he made, including about Islam. The abrupt changes sent reverberations through the Pentagon as nervous civilian and military personnel waited for the next shoe to drop, and they fueled worries of a wider effort to drum out anyone considered not loyal enough to Trump. The unease was palpable inside the building throughout the day over concerns about what the Trump administration may do in the months before President-elect Joe Biden takes office, and whether there will be a greater effort to politicize a historically apolitical military. While radical policy shifts seem unlikely before the January 20th inauguration, the changes could further damage prospects for a smooth transition already hampered by Trump's refusal to concede his election loss. Let's marinate on that a bit. It's not even alcohol, it's just pure coffee. I would give you more things, but that unease I've been feeling since Saturday has only grown. It would feel and be incredibly alarmist of me to tell you that you should be worried, but I know that I am growing increasingly worried. These are actions that will require resolution, and the unknown is what that resolution will look like. I will simply implore you to stay informed and abreast of the conditions in Washington. None of this is normal. This is a body spiking a fever and now debating whether one should go to the hospital or not. This is not how the transfer of power was set up. This is not normal. But to keep things light and fun and to keep my hair, somebody needs to check me before I go on air. Oh, my hair. Isn't it always the hair? It's rainy outside, y'all. It's almost hard to enjoy the mundane things in life, like a really good, are we going to call it an audition? Callback? And also, thank you for those who reached out about my breakup with my dental hygienist. Dental hygienist was a word I was looking for yesterday, but I could not think of. Okay. I'm hopeful about some options I discussed with the dentist office, and if it'll still be cost effective to go there. Because I really, really love my hygienist. I don't think I've ever felt this way about my care team, from my social worker to my other doctor down at Emory to my primary care doctor at Absolute Care and the entire team down there, and to my dentist. Those are three situations that give me anxiety, as I'm sure it is the way for so many of us. But between those three places, I know I'm in good medical hands. I absolutely love Terry Hackworth at Absolute Care. Oh my God. Oh my God. And my therapist at Positive Impact in Decatur, Rico. Just health-wise, I feel like I'm in a really safe spot right now. Again, the election causes me a lot of discomfort about the unknowns in the coming weeks, but I just keep reminding myself to stay in a holding pattern until we, and I, know more. So, as I started out, let me tell you about the Shakespeare Project. Well, just a bit. So I sent in my resume for a workshop on Shakespeare, which is headed by, and I don't know if I'm allowed to share their information yet, their name, so I won't until I ask. But anyways, I auditioned with a piece from As You Like It, when Rosalind tells off Phoebe, because I love a good dressing down. I live for it. And to get to do that as an actor in the right? Okay. But enough. Yeah, it was a really good audition. I had a wonderful conversation with them about their passion, the person leading the project, about their passion for Shakespeare and our mutual interests. And yeah, I alluded to it a little bit yesterday, but I'll keep vague booking until and get confirmation that it's okay to discuss even more. So yesterday, I went into, I guess, what would be called a callback. Not that I don't know the term, but I just don't know what to call that situation because we're just going to call it a callback. I've been to callbacks before, don't worry. And I'd been asked to look over some parts for Hubert. There was a French person, a French linguist in the room who oft got mistaken for Canadian, Quebecois, even though they said they were from Florida. But it was because they grew up watching Degrassi, and I'm digressing. Anyways, they had a French linguist book on hand, and we were asking about some pronunciations, and Anyways, Hubert and Pandolf, who, full disclosure, I keep wanting to call Pandolf Pantoufle from Chocolat. That name keeps throwing me, and every time I read, I'm like, Pantoufle, and I think about this imaginary little, I think it was an imaginary kangaroo. I did look up the meaning for pantoufle, and it does mean slipper in French. So, guess what Cinderella's called in French? I don't know. Anyways, they led me through the scene between Hubert and Arthur, beat by beat, as they asked me to think about a time I was doing something similar. Now, in the scene, Hubert is supposed to blind Arthur with a hot branding iron to his eyes, and God, it's a really beautiful scene. It was, I was emotional in my first read through before I went to go meet with them and the rest of the group. But then he took me beat by beat as I was having all of, look, and the emotions that it did brought up, but also just this feeling between Hubert and his love for Arthur, and Arthur pleading. Good God. And then, this is a huge spoiler, but if you don't know already, then it's been out there for like 500 plus years. Arthur later commits suicide after Hubert tells the king that, he's still alive. And first off, in the following scenes, Hubert is accused of still killing the boy, even though he's said, no, I left him alive here. And then when he finds out that Arthur has died, it's gut-wrenching. You can feel the love off of the pages, and it's just visceral. And so I read that scene like 20 minutes before going into this callback audition type thing. So I'm already in a very high emotional state. So then there we are, and the emotions that scene brought up, I'm truly amazed I let myself go there. Yeah, they let me beat by beat, and I was holding, and I told them afterwards what I was thinking of, but I'm not going to, well, actually I will. I was thinking of my brother. I was thinking about the time that we staged an intervention with my brother, and so that was my as if. Is that the right terminology? I can never remember. But anyways, I was thinking about leading the intervention with my brother and imagining it was as if my older brother, was in that position. It was really powerful work. It was really powerful. Therapeutic for me in a sense, but also there was a level of mastery acting-wise. Really proud of myself because I allowed myself to go there, but I was still in control. And that's something I've been working on since starting with Meisner, of who, oddly enough, why this moment is so powerful for me. The first time I had my breakdown in Meisner was 2012, on stage with my dear friend Brian, and we're doing repetitions, and it's the first night that it's getting cold. It was getting cold in Atlanta. And I was standing on stage, and I was looking at Brian, and the entire day I just been thinking about my older brother who was living on the streets. And so I'm there on stage and looking at Brian, and in that moment, Brian became my brother. And I got so angry at him, at Brian, imagining him as my brother, I did feel like I lost a little bit of control. But then, in the very next exercise, I got up there and I was doing repetitions with Laura. I had a full ass breakdown on stage, like just a full ass breakdown. Because behind all that anger and rage that came out when I was doing my scene with Brian was this underlying hurt and fear and pain that I felt towards my brother that I did not know was there. One reason I love Meisner. One reason I also recommend doing therapy while you take Meisner. Yes, I do. Um, so it was really a full circle moment. That was 8 years ago, almost to the day, because, yeah, there was also a whole bunch of other things going on, but yeah. And so to have that moment yesterday, 8 years later after starting Meisner, and starting out from going into that moment, you know, that moment, and feeling completely out of control, to using my brother again, my older brother, as an as if, consciously, but remaining in control. It's taken me 24 hours just to process all of yesterday. And I'm sharing that with you because today, apparently, y'all are my therapist. Crazy. Um, yeah. Yeah. Dive into Shakespeare. Dive into it in a safe space. Look, so afterwards, we dove into Pandolf, who provided for me just this really nice contrast of emotions. And yeah, it's just, look, I'll be honest, it was a room full of queer and non binary people. Some were identified as trans, some identified as non binary. But it was that same safe feeling I felt up in New York again when I was working with Pride 50 of just like, I am free to be me in this moment. That's powerful. I'm free to be me in this moment. And when you get in an acting moment, an acting environment where you feel that safety and that freedom, that's powerful, and that's where work is done. I got on a soapbox, didn't I? I got on an acting soapbox. So let me just continue and wrap all of this up. At the end of the discussion, because there were other actors on the Zoom, the person leading the workshop, but really just as callback. We haven't even gotten to the workshop yet. That's how I know this rest of this is going to be powerful. But anyways, they talked about accessibility to Shakespeare and wanted to increase that and a few other things. I closed out my part of the conversation by saying I have always wanted an opportunity to work on Shakespeare as an actor in a low pressure setting like this, where it feels safe to explore the text and with someone who is so knowledgeable about the text. And the fact that it wasn't working towards a production, but just simply for the sheer pleasure of exploring the text and characters as actors, it was beautiful. And what I saw the other actors bring was equally as beautiful in their moments of being asked to do one scene and then doing a completely different character because we're trying the non binary approach and also seeing how different genders work with different characters. And I want to keep doing Shakespeare. I want to do more Shakespeare. I want to someday try to do Shakespeare on draft or something. I don't know. And I don't know, I think y'all know this, but in my head, I thought that Lady Macbeth would be the highlight of my Shakespearean acting roles or whatever, that I would get to do, like, top dream roles, because I just had this, and it's been a bit influenced by, what was that movie that Vin Diesel was in? And it was the second one. He's blind or whatever. Anyways, Thandie Newton, the whole story was basically lifted from Macbeth. And Thandie Newton, if she ever plays Lady Macbeth on stage, I'm gonna be there. But she pulled the inspiration so deep, and she says this line flawless, and then she turns, but everything goes to shit or whatever. What am I saying? I don't know. It was a wonderful experience. I would love to do Macbeth one day, and I thought Lady Macbeth was my dream Shakespearean role. But now, after doing that Rosalind monologue, she may be my dream role. I don't know. Yeah. I want to continue this conversation about Shakespeare somehow. I'm not knowledgeable, but I know two people who are. So, Hillary, I know three people who are now. Okay, Hillary, Jasmine, and they. One day I'll see if I can get permission to use her name. Y'all, let's do a Shakespeare episode because Shakespeare. I've been inflamed with this newfound passion for Shakespeare. That's crazy. All right. um, wasn't that normally I do the light stuff first and then I give you a heavy, but shook it up today. All right, that's all I got. I gotta get ready for stuff. Today is Veterans Day. 11/11. The 11th day of the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. War ceased. In some countries, it's called Armistice Day. Veterans, whether dead or alive, they've given to this country, and we've all given, but some have made an incredibly huge sacrifice. And I will say this: I know some of the veterans in my life don't want to be placed on a pedestal, and I agree with that. It's the same. We're not going to go into that conversation, but there was a whole other side thought I had. But they're human. They are just like us. And so instead of definitely give them the respect that they deserve, but also remember they are human. They are not superhuman in that they don't have these lives and they're going through troubles, but they did what they did and now are living with the consequences of that, the after effects. So that's why we honor them. Because military service, war, it leaves a lasting impact on your life. Some never fully recover from it. So honor a veteran today. So with that, a special shout out to the veterans in my life. I would list you all, but I'm afraid I would leave out somebody, so mainly a shout out to my cousin, Whitney, and my father, Lieutenant Colonel, retired, Daniel Morgan. All right, y'all. This was a really long, chatty episode. Okay, who knows what I'm going to talk about next? All right, I love y'all. Keep bearing lights and being, and until next time.